Hello and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hi, my name's Zoe. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really do hope that you decide to subscribe, and if you're a current subscriber, please make sure that your bell is on, as YouTube doesn't like suggesting the kind of content I like to make. Welcome back to another Storytime Saturday. So today's video was highly suggested from the last one. As you know, we put 2 video topics up at the end of the video and you choose one down below, and by the title of this video you can tell which one won. Today we are going to be talking about my miscarriage story. Just before getting into this video, I do want to say that I will be posting 2 videos a week. One true crime video and one normal video just like this. So you guys can get to know me a little bit better while still being interested in all that creepy stuff. I feel like on this channel I do not show myself enough, so that's why I've decided to do this, so you guys can see another side to me. So make sure you stick around till the end of the video so you can choose what the next Storytime Saturday topic will be. So my story all takes place back in 2015 when I was with my ex-partner. Now we had been together around 4 years, I believe, at this point, and I found out I was pregnant. I'm going to go over a little bit of how I found out, just to give you a little bit more of insight into this story. So basically at the time, me and my ex-partner were not using protection. We was not preventing any sort of pregnancy, but at the same time I didn't expect to fall pregnant. I was young and I was silly, and yes, you should be using protection if you do not want a pregnancy. Now, it wasn't a case of me not wanting a pregnancy, it's just my situation at the time wasn't the best, so it wouldn't have been ideal for me to have a baby, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I didn't want one. So I was living with my ex-partner, and our friend had been staying at our home for a little while. At the weekends we used to drink, we used to have fun, and we used to party. What 18-year-old doesn't? That's how I spent my time. Every single weekend, from Thursday to Monday, we would party. So we had been partying all weekend, and usually during the Monday, the Tuesday, the Wednesday, I'm feeling a little run down. Now the next weekend rolls around and usually we're all get up and go, let's all drink. But I still felt unwell, and I thought, right, I've got a case of the flu. I really don't feel good. Either that or I am still hungover from the weekend before, which never happened to me at all. So I carried on feeling unwell, being in bed, and then when we got into the next week, the next weekend had passed, I hadn't drank a drop because I felt awful. I thought it was time to take a pregnancy test because I hadn't got my period. So I took the pregnancy test. I remember being stood in the little toilet, taking the pregnancy, and just finding out I was pregnant, and I broke down crying, simply because I did not know what to do. I had never been in that situation. It was the first ever time that I had got a positive pregnancy test, and my first initial reaction was just to sit and cry. So I'm sat on the toilet seat and I'm crying. My ex-partner at the time, and he says, "What's wrong?" and I say, "I'm pregnant." It was a shock, not only to me but to him. We were both young. He was a year older than me, I think, so I would have been around 18, he would have been around 19 at this time. We were both very young, and it was a shock. I didn't know what to do. I was so scared of telling people, but I was ready to take on whatever was thrown at me, and I decided, right, I'm going to go ahead with this. I'm going to see how things go and how things pan out, and hopefully our families will support us. We told the majority of his family first. on that day that we found out. And then later that day I actually was going to a family meal because it was my mum's birthday, and I remember being sat at this family meal and people were offering me drinks, they were offering me food, and I couldn't eat it because I was so sick. Obviously I couldn't drink the alcohol because I was pregnant and I didn't know what to do, and towards the end of the meal I literally broke down because my sister turned around to me and said, "What are you being so angry for? Are you up the duff?" And I just broke down and said, "Yes, I am. There you go." And my mum just looked at me and was like angry. I could tell she was angry at first, but after a couple of hours, after it had set in, it turns out she was just angry at how I told her rather than the fact I was actually pregnant. So yeah, my mum didn't find out in the best of ways, but now near enough everybody knew that I was pregnant. I went to the doctors, I got checked out, everything was great. I found out I was 6 weeks and we booked in for my 12-week scan because that's what you do in the UK. Here you have a scan at 12 weeks. I don't know how it works anywhere else. But this was towards the end of November, and obviously this landed like bang on at Christmas, so they couldn't obviously fit me in then. I had to wait an extra 2 weeks until I was 14 weeks, and it was just before the new year that I was going to get my 12-week scan, which was all fine by me. So we were going to family events, we were doing things together, we were looking at prams, we were figuring out baby names. Everybody, including our family, was excited. Yes, I wasn't in the best situation, but everybody was willing to support us and help us get to where we needed to be, which was really, really nice. So a couple of days before Christmas, my partner had gone to the cinemas with his granddad. They were watching a film and I stayed at home with the friend who was staying at ours, and we chilled out. I had a bath, we just relaxed. And once I got out of the bath, I started to bleed. It was kind of sudden, out of nowhere, as if I'd just come on my period, and instantly I didn't know what to do. My partner walked through the door and was like, "What's going on?" So I told him, I said, "I'm starting to bleed." So he rang his mum, who has multiple children, so she knows exactly what she's talking about when it comes to pregnancies and stuff, and she said, "Look, you need to ring a doctor because this could mean that something bad is happening." Now when you bleed during an early pregnancy, it can mean something bad is happening, so it's always best to get checked out, but it isn't always the case. I just want to assure you that people do bleed in early pregnancy and it is totally normal. But it can show signs that something abnormal is happening. So if you're going through that, please get checked out by a medical professional as soon as possible. So she had told me I needed to go to the doctors. So we have an early pregnancy unit down by us, which I called and I said, "Look, I'm having this bleeding. Can someone check me out?" My GP wouldn't look at me because it was pregnancy related, so they had advised me to go to the early pregnancy unit. They said that they couldn't get me in right away for a scan because it was Christmas, because there was no appointments, and I would have to wait until at least the first week after Christmas. And I said okay. So at this point I was looking at least 10 days until I would get seen and have an ultrasound. So I decided to go to the hospital because I know when you go through the accident and the emergency near us, they have a gynecology unit sort of thing where they look into this sort of stuff. So I went there and I was with my mum and my partner at the time. I was so upset because I was bleeding, I was in pain and I didn't know what was happening. Now the gynecologist, I think it was one of the nurses, sat me down and spoke over everything, asked me what was going on, and they said, "We can't do a scan on you, an emergency one, because they were busy with other people who were having emergency C-sections, etc, etc. So they could book me in for a scan, but again I would be waiting for at least a week." So I said okay. They said if the bleeding was to get any heavier, if I was to notice any certain big bouts of pain, to contact them and they will rush me in. But other than that, the best thing that they could offer was paracetamol and to go home wear a pad and see how I got. So I had a scan nearly I think it was around 8 to 9 days after I started to bleed. I went into the scan and they could still see everything on the screen, but they were saying the pregnancy itself isn't where it should be. At this point I should have been around 13 weeks pregnant, but the gestational sac was showing that I was around 6 weeks, which to the dates and to my last period didn't work out. They told me to go home for 7 days, wait it out and come back for an ultrasound, and if it hadn't grown then that would mean I would have had a miscarriage. So I went home and went back for the scan and they did confirm that I had a miscarriage at 6 weeks, but my body had held on to everything, was continuing to make hormone despite the baby not being alive or growing. The next thing the doctors were concerned about was getting the pregnancy out of me, basically because old pregnancy tissue can cause you to be very poorly. You've got to think that tissue is, but it's going to cause infection basically if it's left there in your stomach for too long. So their main concern was getting that tissue out of me. So what they decided to do was to give me the abortion pills, which I talked about in my last video. I will leave a card above, just basically goes over my abortion story, but they give me similar treatment to what you have when you have an abortion, so that my body would expel the tissue and it would not make me poorly. I was absolutely devastated because they said that what was left was measuring at around 6 weeks, and I had only just found out at 6 weeks. So I spent a long time feeling like the whole time I knew I was pregnant, the whole time I was getting excited to be pregnant, I wasn't really pregnant. That's what was going through my mind through this whole thing. I spent Christmas Day and Boxing Day so upset, because I knew that's what they were going to tell me. I knew that I was going to go to the scan and they were going to tell me that that's what was going on. You always think when you hear miscarriage that it's not going to happen to you, but yet we all know somebody who's gone through that. It is so much more common than we think it is. It's extremely common. There are so many women going through this on a daily basis, and having personally gone through that experience, I totally feel for you, because it's a horrible experience to go through. It's so hard to almost grieve over something you almost never had. I took it really hard afterwards, and so did my partner, and eventually after a couple of weeks this did break down our relationship. It caused us both to be bitter at each other. I am sad that that's what happened with our relationship, but in the same way I don't regret going through that experience, because that experience in itself has made me stronger. It has made me exactly who I am today. I would be a loving mother, of course, but I don't think I would be as protective and as loving had I had not gone through that. When I was pregnant with my son, Dominic, I absolutely treasured every single moment of being pregnant. I remember the first time he kicked, the first time he moved, his heartbeat. I remember it all so very well. I think I took that experience in more because I had been through what I had been through, and I didn't want to let that stop me enjoying my pregnancy. So I really did enjoy it. Now don't get me wrong, the first 12 weeks I was so anxious that something could happen because I'd already been through it. I spent the first 12 weeks being anxious of that pregnancy, but in general it made me stronger and I was able to enjoy every single second, and I am really grateful for that. Now, people are going through miscarriages every day. Like I said, it's very common. So I am going to leave some information linked down below for those who are going through a similar thing. But also, don't feel like you can't talk to me, because you can. You can DM me and we can chat about our experiences. I have got a very hard shell and most things don't bother me. Despite me having that experience, I don't have to tiptoe over things. We can have a proper, in detail, heart to heart, and I will help you wherever I can. So just DM me on Insta, because that's the best way to reach me. I just also want to say, the reason it is called a miscarriage is because your body has stopped growing that pregnancy at a certain date, and then you don't find out till later because your body has held on to the pregnancy, and that's why it's called a miscarriage, because it's not picked up on straight away. So that is all for today's story time. I really hoped you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know down below. And these are your choices for next week's story time. You got A and you got B. And leave them commented down below. Let me know which one you would want to hear next week. And leave me a big thumbs up as well if you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment, hit the subscribe button, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye.